everything you know about pirates, everything they've showed you in the films, in the history books, and all the specialists who know everything about pirates is wrong. It's all based on the exploits of 35 or 36 famous pirates, be it Blackbeard, Morgan, Roberts, Avery, and all the others. Together, there are 36 pirates. Okay? And all of their exploits have been fed into the machine, and we have today a vision, a public vision of pirates. It is completely wrong. And why do I say that? Because 2 years ago, the Maritime Museum at Greenwich gave out the information that they have from their archives that, in fact, there were 5,000 pirates. So one asks the question, how can the exploits of 35 pirates represent a category of 5,000 invisible, let's call them invisible pirates because they were unknown? It can't, can it? Therefore, although these famous pirates did what they did to project in our minds pirates, the reality is that the 5,000 pirates who were invisible, they were the reality of piracy. So, listener, I'm reaching out to you right now, and I want you to do an experiment with me. I want you to imagine that you are looking through a telescope at a pirate ship, and as you focus in, you see 3 pirates on the pirate ship looking back at you. I want you to close your eyes for 8 seconds, starting now. Imagine those 3 pirates. 8 seconds, open your eyes, and hands up, all of you listeners who imagined at least one of the pirates with an eye patch. Well, of course, unless you leave something in the comments, we will never know if you lifted your hand up or not. But let me tell you that 3/4 of you held up your hands, because this is the image that has been projected on you to believe as pirate. But it's wrong. Let me tell you that the real pirates were invisible. And of course, how can one make invisible pirates visible? It's very difficult, because what they did left no trace at all. No receipts, no bills of lading, nothing. But there is a way. And I have tried, because of my very good friend Darren. He is a stickler for factuality. He needs facts.
I do.
And
I do. This is
so
true.
I've thought to myself, how can I present Darren with facts, and also yourself, the listeners, how can I present facts to you from something that's invisible? So let me start with the trial of the famous pirate William Kidd. At the time, the authorities were extremely anti-pirate, and anything they could break up against pirates and piracy, they did. So At the trial of William Kidd in the Old Bailey, there were no defence witnesses allowed in court. Therefore, all the people who supported William Kidd demonstrated outside court, shouting, and as the 3 days went on, became more and more people. And the reporters of the time who were instructed to find anything that degrades pirates were all inside the court except for one on the third day, who decided to stay with the crowd outside the Old Bailey, where he reported that a Lady Gillingham, now we don't know if it was Lady Gillingham or a lady from Gillingham, but in any case, a Lady Gillingham continued shouting, William Kidd was okay, he saved our ship, and his men gave me a good price for my dresses. Well, the reporter reported this because it was reported in a way that degraded the pirates, that in such that their debauchery now included cross-dressing, because they bought the dresses from the Lady Gillingham. So I decided to follow the dresses, because I knew that, one, they would not have bought the dresses if they were to be used as cross-dressing. They would have just taken them. Two, I asked a question that the reporter never asked. What was this lady doing on the ship? Where was she going? Where did she come from? And above all, how many dresses? So then we follow the dresses. This leads us to the invisibility. The dresses were going to a place called Port Royal and Tortuga, the two biggest pirate bases at the time. So here we again, for Darren's sake, we come into factuality. It is fact that
and any other listeners who might be slightly sceptical of your stories,
which might sometimes happen.
Yeah. I mean, it is possible.
No, Darren, I have to say thank you, because had you not been so stickler for facts, I wouldn't have got the story.
To be fair, I always use Darren's facts when someone doesn't believe when I tell you my excitement.
We've got documented proof that in Port Royal, which was slightly bigger than Tortuga, but to make it simple, let's call them both the same size. Plus, of course, there was Madagascar. Plus, of course, there were other pirate havens that came and went that were smaller. But we're going to concentrate on the facts. And the facts are that in Port Royal, there were 35 brothels. In each brothel, there were approximately an average of 10 girls. That means each girl will need this year, 3 dresses. 3 dresses in Port Royal per girl equals 1,000 dresses. We are not talking about Zara or H&M or Marks and Spencer's dresses. We're talking about handmade, proper 17th century dresses that were worth a lot of money. If we then add in Tortuga, we arrive at 2,000 dresses per year. But staying with the brothel, an average brothel will break 2 glasses per day, every day, for a year, which is 700 glasses a year get broken and need to be replaced. Add in Tortuga, that is 1,500 glasses every year. In Tortuga, there was one. In Port Royal, there were 2 German pianos. Now, my question is, you're on an island in the middle of nowhere. Where are you going to find and source 2,000 dresses, 3,000 glasses, and 3 German pianos? The only ships that were allowed into Tortuga or Port Royal were pirate ships. So all of this, plus of course the tailor next door to the brothel who needed cloth, or the brass and tinker man, and all the other people in a small village with their wares, where were they supplied? They were supplied by the invisible pirates, who were in fact the Amazon.com of their time. They were supplying every single thing that was required, be it the buccaneers who needed a plough, be it, as I said, the glasses and the dresses. Every single thing was being supplied by the invisible pirates. Whereas all the historians point to the slave trade, or the sugar trade, or the rum trade, and all these big number trades, nobody has ever looked at the everyday business of what was actually happening. So how would the invisible pirates with their Amazon.com system work? They worked, and this is the most wonderful for me, is they worked from distribution points. And one of the distribution points was in Ireland, in a place called Skull, 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 where orders coming in would be distributed to ships to be taken to pirate havens or other places by the invisible pirates. And this business went on for 200 years. For 200 years. How many dresses, how many pianos, how many glasses, how many wads of cloth were transported around that nobody knows about? But they were. So what that created, together with the pirate code, was everybody of a certain age wanted to become a pirate. There were people waiting in docks like Bristol or Plymouth or Falmouth in the hope of getting a job on a ship, in the hope that that ship would be attacked by pirates so they too could become pirates. Everyone who did become a pirate, let's call them invisible pirates, had an aim. Their aim was to reach their one share to be valued at £1,000. That was their dream. Their dream was £1,000, which at that time was like winning the football pools or the lottery. It would take them, if they were lucky, 4 or 5 years. If they were unlucky, a dozen years. But let's say on average, it would take them 10 years of working on a pirate ship to achieve the level of £1,000. And when they did, that was enough, and they would leave, go back home to their village or wherever, invest that money into a small holding, a farm, a restaurant or something. And for the first time in world history, the economy changed from drip down from the top to the poor people suddenly having money, and the money coming in from the bottom. Now, I'm going to tell you the story of a pirate called Greg. Now, he was from Belfast. He was one of 8 siblings. His father was a smithy. So his father was working as smiths do, whether it was horses or hinges or whatever he was making. But he had to work hard enough to feed the mouths of 8 children, his wife and himself. So this is a very, very poor family. Now, Sam Gregg, at the age of 17, disappears from the records. At the age of 27, he returns into the records, is documented, because he bought a ship. A ship in those days costs £4,500. But it's not a question of the money. It's a question of, if you buy a ship or you build a ship, you must have customers. You must have contacts for your cargoes. You must understand everything there is to understand about a ship before you buy it. This guy was penniless at 17. He bought a ship at 27 and became one of the largest ship owners in the world, teaming up with another ex-pirate in New York, creating the biggest shipping line at the time. And by the way, his son, I've got the name but I can't remember it. His son was sent to be educated in Harrow, later moved to Manchester and set up the Gregg Mills, becoming the biggest mill owner in Manchester. His mill is today a museum, a working museum that can be visited by anybody. Outside of the museum, you will find cottages that he built for his employees using the pirate code. And it's a working museum that can be seen today. And this is how the invisible pirates that until now have been completely ignored by people like Netflix or Disney or all the other historians and filmmakers. This is how their entrepreneurship created the basis for an incredible change in the financial systems of the UK and formed the basis for the Industrial Revolution.
Question. You said that sort of parallel economy, which is essentially what it was, a parallel economy, lasted for 200 years.
Yeah.
And then stopped.
They morphed. They morphed from invisible pirates into legal shipping companies. Everything based on the dealings they had as invisible pirates into legal shipping entrepreneurs.
And are there any that are particularly well known, which you know for a fact kind of have their roots in piracy?
I believe there are a couple in Bristol. And of course, the best example is Greg himself. But I would hazard a guess that more than half.
Really?
Yeah. More than half. You know, shipping isn't just, let's get a ship and fill it out with cargo and do. No, shipping is a very complicated endeavour.
Yeah.
You have to have cargo, and cargo is goods that are owned by one person and sent to another person. You are the chain in the middle that effectuates that exchange. You have crew members. You have stuff that breaks. You have to understand the weather. You have to understand the sails. You have so many things to understand that unless you know everything there is to know about ships, you can't be a ship owner in those days. Probably even today, unless you understand fully what it means to be a ship owner, you can't be one.
Why is it that you think that people have been happy to not shine a light on all of these other types of pirates?
The pirate code. The pirate code. Now, I was speaking to Alex Barker last night about this. So I was trying to help her because the pirate code is a code that you can find it on the internet. There are variations of it, but basically it starts with equality. So you have everybody is equal, everybody gets one share. Well, the authorities at the time, they didn't care too much about that. Equality, everyone, the French Revolution, equality, everybody looking for equality. But the authorities and the powers of the time, they didn't care, that didn't bother them. What bothered them was the fact that in the code, if you lost a limb, an eye, or an arm, you received a pension of one share. If you died, your widow received a pension of one share. And this is the first mention of the word pension. And the word pension frightened the authorities of the time so much that they had to kill it off.
Because that wasn't the case in the Navy, was it? In the Navy, you lost an arm.
Bye-bye.
If you go, we can't use you anymore.
No pension. The pirate code invented the pension, invented equality, and even gay marriage, which is around today. But it was the pension that really got up the nose of the authorities at the time. And as the pirate code got out and people wanted to become pirates and the word of the pirate code got out, the authorities were so afraid that the populace would demand these same pensions, they had to kill off by any way pirates and their code.
And so how did they do that?
How did they do that? Mm-hmm. Well, I started with William Kidd. I'll finish with William Kidd. William Kidd is a classical example. William Kidd is part of this because the Lady Gillingham that we laughed at was outside the court when he was condemned to death at Wapping. They dragged him up the gallows at Wapping and they hung him. He survived. The rope broke. They picked him up against the law of the land of the time. They dragged him back up to the top of the gallows and they hung him for a second time, even though it was illegal to do so. Then they tarred and feathered his body and put it in a cage at Wapping for all to see as a message to the pirates. There were no pirates in Wapping. There were no pirates in London. There were no pirates on the Thames. So the message was not for the pirates. The message was for the populace to don't ask for anything pirate because this is what will happen to you. And the news on the grapevine was this lady delivered the box to Lord Lucan.